Hello, this is Leif Kertis. This is for Marketing 6340, Dr. Gerlich. This is a book review of Appetite for America by Stephen Fried and the Harvey Girls documentary. Appetite for America. It's a book documenting one man's endeavors, trying to civilize the West through a chain of eateries that are at the depots and hotels, essentially building a hospitality empire. The Harvey Girls was a documentary film going into the personal lives and the trials and tribulations of the actual Harvey Girls. The book itself, it was a fantastic read. Anyone who enjoys a business book and a book about the Southwest and how it was formed would definitely enjoy this book. You never really realize how many places were influenced by Fred Harvey, especially here in the Southwest. I mean, we have a depot, the Santa Fe Depot here in Amarillo. Many of the places that I visited in New Mexico never even realized that they had a depot, and you can definitely see, especially in Raton, New Mexico, you look and you're like, well, how's there a town here? I know it's a pass between Colorado and New Mexico, but how is there such a thriving community? And it was started kind of by, the Fred Harvey chain. The civilization part of it, Fred Harvey required a coat to come and eat in his eateries, and he didn't take any of the ungentlemanlike behavior that was associated with the Western town. You think of it at that time when Fred Harvey came to fruition, the West was, it was uncivilized, just looking at it that way. You see, the outlaws saw it as a place where they could hide out. They didn't have to pay their bills, they could just intimidate everybody. Fred Harvey wouldn't have it. He just didn't have it. So it really led to the civilization of the Southwest. Along with the girls, they thought, him and Gable thought that it would sit there and bring a sort of civilization by having girls, take a little bit of the frustration out of being in the Southwest. When Harvey started the eating houses, he was already working for the railroads. So it's not like the eating houses just came out of nowhere. They were already established places in the depots. Harvey knew the negative connotation of the depots, especially the Santa Fe one. So he changed the name. He changed the name of the Santa Fe Depot to the Clifton. Now, according to marketingmo.com, there's an article there that talks about the naming and when you should rename it. The article says you should never take renaming lightly. There are really 3 types of criteria that you should take into account when you're doing a renaming of some place. One is to escape, distance yourself from a negative event. Depots, that was all negative events, the food and everything, which leads us into the second point, which is that you're trying to represent an upgraded service or an upgraded product through your name change. So saying Fred Harvey Eating House or the Clifton was a whole lot better than the Santa Fe Depot, and that's what they wanted to portray to people. Now, Harvey was an absolute amazing businessman for his time. You look at some of the business dealings, some of them could be considered unethical, crooked, what have you, in this time period. Now, in his time period, completely normal. Everyone did it. You look at the fact that he worked for the railroad and he contracted through the railroad that he was working for, and said, I'm going to do these eating houses on our railroad. You're going to pay me for them. I'm going to get the profits off of them. Hey, and I'm going to continue working for rival railroads, selling ads, tickets, what have you. Today's world, that wouldn't fly. You got no compete agreements. You've got all sorts of things that would go against Fred Harvey in that aspect. It would be like, okay, you're either going to work for the railroad or you're going to open your eating houses and we'll contract with you through the railroad, but you're not going to do both. You sit there and you look, and he was really a champion of the civil rights movement and the women's suffrage movement. He employed the Harvey Girls. Big thing there. The book points out that everyone thought that it was real sexist of him, but a lot of American scholars, feminist scholars in particular, thought that him hiring the Harvey Girls was a turning point for women's rights. As far as civil rights, many freed slaves didn't have jobs, still had the service in them from the slavery. He brought them on to good, reputable, respectable employment with the railroad and within his eating houses. So on FoxNews.com there was actually an article this year in May stating how the Harvey Girls really helped, especially in New Mexico, as far as women's rights. One of the Harvey Girls actually created the New Mexico branch of the National Organization of Women. So you can see that the Harvey Girls had a huge impact on both spectrums, from both the female side and the business side, as far as women's rights. There is even a Harvey Girls Day in the state of New Mexico. Now, after Harvey passed, he had his son. The book highlights that Ford made possible, he increased standards, all that stuff. Ford had daily meetings. He did, and you look on a bunch of websites, and the daily meetings just made sure that things were being run accordingly. Especially since his father passed, he wanted to make sure that his father's legacy was, carried on in a good way. So you look and you see there's a HR website. It counsels people in HR to run effective meetings. It's called hrcouncil.ca. They give you tools to run effective meetings. One of the tools is that you have normal business meetings. During that normal business meetings, it reminds your employees that there's more going on to the business than just your own personal deadlines and issues, and it also gives a chance for collaboration and mutual support within the company. And I think that's what Ford was trying to do, and it definitely helped as far as seeing the outline of what was to come in the days and what had happened in the past and how they could combat that. The book goes a little bit into the Harvey Girls, but the Harvey Girls film actually documents the lives of the Harvey Girls more directly. They sit there, and the book kind of contradicts the movie in the fact that the book sits there and says that they wanted to civilize the West. They wanted to bring in local culture, which is why they hired Native Americans and Mexicans. But you listen to the accounts of some of the Harvey Girls within the movie, and they said that the only reason that they got hired was because the blue-eyed, blonde-haired girls either didn't want to come to Arizona or they ran out of them. So you take that how it is. Overall, I was real pleased with the reading and viewing experience. The book had great insight into the families of the 19th and 20th century, the great families of the 19th and 20th century. If you only get one thing out of the two pieces, the book and the movie, I would hope that somebody gets the fact that the Southwest was really shaped by Fred Harvey. When you travel now, you're going to know that, hey, this was really influenced by what Fred Harvey did and what his family did. I know it's a little bit over 5 minutes, but it's hard to get 5 minutes into this book and video. It's such a great book and video, and I hope that people will really read it and really look and see how everything in this book affected the Southwest.